And welcome back to another edition of Meat Speak, powered by the certified Angus beef brand. My name is Brian Schaff. With me, as always, Chef Tony Biggs.
I'd gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today.
I have a feeling we're not going to be discussing old cartoons.
No, we are not. But we are going to discuss the first cartoon that probably presented hamburgers.
Oh my gosh.
When I was 5 or 6 years old.
Right? You know, burgers are one of those things. I think it doesn't matter what generation you came from, at least in America, right? You know, my earliest food memories growing up on the farm, you know, I'm not going to tell you where it came from, but I will tell you there was a Happy Meal involved. And it was centered around burgers. Burgers.
I can recall watching Saturday morning cartoons and Wimpy, Popeye's best buddy, with just filling his mouth with burgers. I remember I wanted to do this. I just wanted to fill my mouth with cheeseburgers, hamburgers all the time. And now, around the world, burgers have escalated, populated the earth. Everybody has one, and everybody's trying to outdo each other.
That's right. You know, it's funny. I thought you were setting that up, that you wanted to spend the rest of your life stuffing yourself with burgers. And you were going to point out that is basically what I do. I am basically your adult, real-life Wimpy. You know, Chef, you hail from Boston, or the Boston area, right? Boston, Massachusetts, which not far from there is the place that is credited as being the home of the original hamburger. Now, have you been? Because have you been?
I have not been.
I know it's what is it? Lewis Lunch.
Lewis Lunch.
New Haven,
right.
Connecticut.
New Haven, Connecticut.
Yeah.
Right?
And
they don't get enough credit.
Right.
And really, I'm definitely going there. And after I go there, I'm going to Frank Pepe's Clam Pizza right down the street.
When in New Haven, right? That's how you do it. You know, Chef. You know, across the board, you see burgers for $1 a piece. You see burgers for $20 a piece, depending on their ingredients. And it seems like there is this push where I believe the pendulum has started to swing back the other way. But for a long time, it seems like people have been trying to push the envelope of making burgers bigger, better, more outlandish, more exotic ingredients. You know, funky grinds. You know, you name it. What are some of the craziest burgers that you've ever seen?
You know what I've seen? I have seen like a $250 hamburger. Why? They put gold leaf, some Iranian or beluga caviar on there, all right, to jack that price up because we want you to have the best. And then maybe a dry age burger, a blend of 3 different cuts, dry age. That would get you over the $250 mark real easy.
Oh, yeah.
But you're right about having a scale of 1 to 10. You can get a $1.50 burger. You know, our friend Greg Garbo in Chicago, I love that steak burger he's doing at the stadium, where it's really thin burger, smash burger.
Yeah.
Has the onions on top of it. Turns that baby over in some nice bacon fat, and then those onions caramelized, and he's got a nice soft bun. The bun has a lot to do with a good burger.
Oh,
too.
yeah.
Would you agree?
I completely agree. If you go up to, if you happen to be in Cleveland, Ohio, there's a fairly new restaurant on the Detroit Shoreway on the west side called Good Company, and some good friends of ours, Brett Sawyer and Vince Tomasic, are the chefs there, and they actually have a burger. It's called the Good Boy. It's modeled after the classic Big Boy, of course. And there's a few different ingredients in it, mind you, among them company sauce. But among everything just works in such harmony, including the bun that they have gone to the lengths to make in-house by their pastry chef, Chef Nolan, and it's incredible. It's like it's a buttermilk brioche, and it's just magical. You know, if you go down to Cincinnati, you know, the idea of the dry aged burgers, you know, and I think it's probably an offshoot as more and more restaurants have their own dry aging coolers, right? They're dry aging on premise. They've inoculated with, you know, if you listen to, here's a shameless self plug. If you listen to our podcast on dry aging in the beef world, if you inoculate your cooler with your Back to Firm 600, right?
Yep.
Delightful, right? You dry age your subprimals. Now that said, the dry aged burger to top all dry aged burgers, at least in my experience.
Okay.
If you go to Prime Cincinnati, it's Chef
Okay.
Sean Hines' restaurant. He brings an entire Chuck clods, puts them in his dry aging cabinet just to put them into the grinder to make, the
Killer burger?
the funkiest, earthiest, richest burger I've ever had in my life. And then he tops it with some larkspur blue cheese.
But you don't even have to add the blue cheese because it kind of has that umami flavor already, right, Brian? Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's intense in the best way possible.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah. You know, Chef, in your travels, right, in this culinary profession, you have you've been all over the world. You've been all around the world. I believe you've lived, or you've been to you've been on 4 different continents cooking. And by that I don't mean that we did the Amazing Race and you flew into Asia, cooked a meal and got on a plane and got out. I mean, you've lived, you've immersed yourselves in the cultures in 4 different continents. A burger, right? Is a burger as we commonly know in America? Is a burger a burger? Is a burger everywhere?
Well, thanks to great, burger chains and restaurant chains in America, I am seeing more and more chains in different parts of the world, whether it be Dubai, Tokyo, the Philippines, Mexico, and what I have to say is one of the burgers that we're not going to mention on our show, but it's about consistency. If I want that consistent burger that I can get here, I should expect that burger to be in the Philippines, okay, or Japan, or the Middle East. So these chains are really, coming up to speed on what an American burger is. But to your point, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, when I lived there, folks were trying to put a burger together. It's all about the texture of the grind. You know what I mean, Brian? Yeah. It's the texture of the grind. Is it too fine? Is it too coarse? Is it like meatloaf? I've had burgers where I think I'm eating a meatloaf sandwich, but you know what? This restaurant's calling it a hamburger, an American burger. So folks, are trying to grind their own burgers, but maybe they don't have the right die, and that is it's the piece that goes into a grinder, which is a medium to small die, where you're getting that nice blend and the right coarse, and you're blending it with the right consistency of fat.
Chef, we're going to get into it here in a few moments with our resident meat scientist, Diana Clark, who, if you are an avid listener to this podcast, you are well-versed with. But, it's the idea of, there are all of these different grinds. And, of course, you go to a retail store, there's ground chuck, there's ground sirloin, there's ground round, right? And then there's ground beef, right? And as you look at these different ones, do you have a specific go-to? I mean, 80-20 ground chuck is kind of the universal standard, right?
Right. Yes.
But do you veer off that path?
Yeah. I mean, I like cuts from the brisket, the chuck, and the round. Or when you get into the middle meats, now you're stepping on sacred ground. And the middle meats, again, when I do that, that means don't do the middle meats, right? Unless you've got you're really got a special person you want to show off to, okay? But I'll tell you, I love the 3 combinations. A lot of chefs are doing that now, where they're taking cuts from the different subprimals and they're blending them, and it's just special. But I got to tell you, before I forget, one of the best burgers I've ever seen was the Burgushi, okay?
Yes.
The Burgushi. Now, this was mind-blowing because this restaurant took ground beef, okay? Cooked it just coarse, and they laid out your rice with your sushi rice on soy paper, okay? And then they put the filling was the ground beef and cheddar cheese melted.
Yeah.
They rolled that up, and then you thought that was over? No way. They took potato, very, very thin sliced potato, and wrapped it completely around the sushi roll so it would stick to each other, and then they deep fried it. And then when it came out of the deep fryer, the potato was golden brown. You could slice this perfect. And then julienne dill pickle, a little bit of chopped onion, and 3 sauces of mayo, ketchup, and mustard. Oh my goodness. Burgushi roll. I was hooked.
The Burgushi roll, that is I believe that's actually found in North Carolina at a restaurant called Cowfish, right?
It's a Cowfish restaurant.
Yeah.
And they have one at Universal Studios in Orlando.
Yeah. And have you ever seen a cowfish?
A cowfish?
Yeah.
I've seen a poster of it.
Yeah, they're adorable, right?
They're, oh my God,
Right?
head of a cow and body of a fish. I
a-
love it. Like Mr. Limpet. Remember
They
him?
swim around. They're far more easy to manage.
It's
than-
right up my
than-
alley, fish and cow.
That's right.
I love it.
Right.
I mean, the menu's brilliant, by the way.
That's crossbreeding at its finest. Huh?
Oh, God, we're not too far from that, Brian. Let's not talk about
Oh, we are going to take a break, and we are going to come back with our, I'll go ahead and say it, our favorite meat scientist, Diana Clark, coming up next to talk about burgers. Back here on the pod with our favorite meat scientist, which I hope you take it because, we know a lot of meat scientists.
I actually do take that as a big compliment.
Right. People may think, well, no. Right. We live in the meat world, right? With us here, meat scientist Diana Clark. Welcome, Diana. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem.
Diana, Chef Tony and I have been having a lot of discussions about one of the topics that is most near and dear to my heart. It's up there with brisket. It's up there with the Beatles, right? It's up there with my children, right? It's, of course, burgers, right?
Oh, yeah.
I love burgers.
Can't go wrong.
My Lord, right? There is a thought, and I know, there are a lot of chefs and industry professionals listening. So I know I'm preaching to the choir, but there is this general thought out there that a burger is a burger, right? It's meat that's been ground, right, and then formed into a patty and then cooked to, if you want to follow the food safety standard, like 160, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
And there you go on a bun, right? I got to get my meat science in there. But there's more to it than that, yeah.
Oh yeah. So, and I'll have to be the first to admit that I was one of those people that thought a burger is a burger. 80-20 is 80-20. There's no difference. It doesn't matter. Until then, I came here to certified Angus beef, and it's not that I was like, oh yeah, I drank the juice. I mean, I definitely do drink the juice of certified Angus beef, but
it's coffee.
No, it just gets right to you. All right, but that ground beef, there's a huge difference when you really start looking at the ground beef category, and I think that's what really took me by surprise is I didn't realize what all could be in ground beef. So there's that surprise. But then you start thinking about just regular commodity 80-20. Let's say it is just skeletal muscle, okay? But that skeletal muscle, did it come from an A-maturity animal? Or did it come from your older animals that are 8 years or older? Okay, yeah. That's going to make a huge difference there, just even in the texture of the burger, which I really never thought about that before. And then you start thinking about even more of our specifications about color. So we don't allow any dark colors. That really plays into the consistency of your grinds. I mean, if any chef out there has ever dealt with persistent pinking, a lot of times it can be due to your pH. And the pH increase is actually caused from a dark cutting beef, which can be found in your older animals. And so that's when you get that inconsistency. Yeah, it might happen every now and again, but why are you paying a little bit more money for that 80-20 commodity grind? It's not worth it.
Yeah. Can you talk about, it's probably the thing that as somebody who's been eating burgers my whole life, in case you can't tell by my physique, it is the fat component of a burger, right?
Yeah.
And it's the idea of fat is not necessarily fat, right? It's not always the same types of fat. I mean, the fat component, throwing any fat into a burger grind isn't it though? I mean, it has a lot to do with where does that fat come from, right?
Exactly. So, I mean, there's fat on the exterior surface of the animal, subcutaneous fat. There's fat on the inside of the animal, so the internal fat, that's kind of your kidney, heart, and lung fat, and that's going to be the most saturated. We actually aren't allowed to use that in beef patties just because it's so saturated. But then as you move into the muscle, so intramuscular fat, that's going to be more unsaturated. Actually, the most unsaturated in the animal. Okay, it's going to be comprised more of your oleic fatty acid, which means it melts at lower temperatures and it's more satiating to the human palate. So you start thinking about that. And there's actually some primals that actually have more oleic fatty acid in them, one of them being brisket. And that just,
You
yeah,
hear the angels.
I just hear them ringing right now, those bells.
Okay, I'm going to cut you off there. Okay. And I'm going to ask the question, right? Because I've made this case. So is it because that fat is similar to an avocado fat, right? A fat from a nut, right?
Yes.
It's a better fat, right?
It's considered your
Right.
healthier fat.
So because it's considered a healthier fat, am I overstating this by saying that eating brisket, therefore, is healthy food?
I'm gonna say yeah, sure. You could go with that one.
I am a
okay?
health nut. I am a health nut.
You can totally
All right.
go with that one.
Thank
If it
you, Al.
Makes you feel better? Yes. Yes, it does.
Thank
All
you.
right? But it really is that more unsaturated fat, which is it's great. I mean, from just an eating quality standpoint alone, it's phenomenal.
It's a tasty fat.
Because now we are using brisket in these blends and we're getting more of that oleic fatty acid into these burger blends and it's driving that satiating flavor. So now driving back to that fat component found in typical 80-20, when you look at certified Angus beef, we require a modest amount of marbling or higher. So that's the upper 2/3 of choice or higher. So if you're grinding our meat, we're going to have more marbling in that meat. So more of that fat is going to be comprised of the marbling, which makes it a better
Also,
burger.
a tastier fat.
Exactly.
There you go.
And healthier.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to go have a burger and then ride a treadmill for a while. And I'm just going to waste away to nothing in front of everybody.
That's just what happens. Sure, everyone at the gym will be so jealous as you chomp down into that
I
burger.
love burgers. You've mentioned brisket a couple times, and it's sort of the en vogue patty. I remember probably 5 years ago, and I was like, brisket chuck, short rib, what? I mean, but you see that blend pop up everywhere now, where it seems like this idea of this specialty custom blended burger made up of brisket, chuck, and short rib, it's just everywhere now.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, and there's a reason for it. Would you recommend shying away from it just because it's so in vogue now?
Oh,
Or is it
no.
because we got it right?
It's a phenomenal blend that we've got right. That's my opinion. I would not shy away from that sucker. And I really do think it's a combination, too, of brisket's fantastic. It's delicious. I mean, short ribs, you look at those suckers, the amount of marbling that's found in the serratus ventralis is phenomenal. Always that abundant. And then chuck roll, chuck roll is just a great mom pa roast. That's kind of what you think of behind there. And at the same time, it's economical.
Yeah.
So we can add in some chuck roll to sometimes brisket prices can go a little bit high, short rib prices can go a little bit high, but we alleviate that flavor with the chuck roll pricing and flavor. You combine them together and you have a winner. I mean, you have a great price burger that's just delicious that people drive back to.
Build for me, if you will. Now, you hail from Chicago.
Yes.
Originally, right? Midwestern, right? Good old-fashioned Midwesterners, right? Chicago, for me, I was actually just in Chicago in the last 10 days, and in one day I had 3 different burgers.
That's awesome.
Right. And one was like a thicker patty, and I remember it had like a brie and blueberry sauce on it.
Okay.
And bacon,
That's
of
pretty
course,
fancy.
right? That was out at Foxfire with our friend Casey Goldbro. And then I had Lamar Moore at the Swill
Oh,
Inns.
gosh, that's
The
delicious.
Swill Burger, which is made with like a house-made pimento cheese.
Yes.
And like angel dust.
I still
right?
can taste
Fairy
that.
dust, right? And then I finished it off later in the evening by going to the Great American Standard Au Cheval, right? Which, has been named best burger in America multiple times, right?
Yeah, I've yet to go.
Yeah, so I find that I gravitate towards thin patties, towards burgers that aren't over fancified, right?
Yes.
Give me meat, a good bun, fat in the form of like a mayonnaise, and something acidic, and cheese. And I mean
yeah.
that's what I find is what sings to me. Like
Classic.
what is your favorite burger? Either place or if you were building it.
So if I were to build my own burger, because I have to say, hands down, probably some of the best burgers I've had have been at the Culinary Center here. I just have to give credit to them. Part of it's the material that we're using that's coming in, but then also our chefs, they cook a lot of burgers. They know what they're doing.
You've done this a time or two.
Yeah. So, but I am a low carb eater. So if I were to be completely transparent on that, I would like to take a patty and actually use lettuce as the bun. Yeah, I am that kind of person.
Blasphemy.
Okay, but at the same time, I will have to say, as a meat scientist, I can taste the meat a lot better with that lettuce wrap versus the bun. The bun just absorbs that flavor.
So what you've done in a roundabout way is you've played the I'm a purist card.
Exactly. All right.
All right, fine.
And then, so Greg Garbo hooked me up with this of taking some onions and putting them down on the flat top, and then taking the burger and just smashing it into those onions.
Yeah.
Now that, wrapped with some lettuce, maybe some just great cheddar cheese, that would be a perfect burger right there.
That's all you need, right?
That's my opinion. I'm with you on the thinner burger. I'm a bigger fan of that.
Right, I like, and again, you don't have to worry about it being smashed.
Yeah.
Or you don't have to worry about it being, cooked to a certain temp.
Exactly. You know
Smash
that
it
it's going to
and-
be
and
ready.
run, yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Right. I can get on board with that, except the lettuce component. And I'm not a lettuce hater, but I have a reputation to uphold. If somebody saw me eating something wrapped in lettuce, I feel like people would be like, it's a cry for help.
They might. I mean, that's usually why I eat in the back, because I just don't want anyone to judge me.
Well, Diana Clark, meat scientist, we appreciate you taking time to talk burgers with us. And again, we're here every 2 weeks, myself and Chef Tony Biggs, and I'm quite certain that you'll be back many, many times. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Looking forward to more episodes.
Back here on the Meat Speak podcast, powered by the certified Angus beef brand, Brian Schaff, Chef Tony Biggs back here. Chef, we've spent a long time talking about burgers, the power of burgers, the taste of burgers. You have a story that if you ever wanted to know just how powerful are burgers, you've gone through this, and yet burgers to you still sound appetizing to this day. What did you do?
Brian, everybody loves burgers. So, did you know I was the executive chef at the Hyatt Regency in Savannah for 10 years?
Yeah.
Okay. Hyatt Regency Savannah, and did you know Savannah houses the second or third largest St. Patrick's Day festival in the country, behind Chicago and New York. Did you know that?
I did not know
because people can come to Savannah and drink open beer, open alcohol law, and they can take and drink on the street. It's epic. Savannah turns the river green.
Yeah.
And the headquarters of the St. Patrick's Day Festival was underneath the Hyatt, on River Street.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, one time, my first St. Patrick's Day, they told me to be ready for the masses, but I'm one of these guys. I can handle anything, right? I'm hey, I'm a chef. I can cook for the masses. Brian, I think I cooked 1,000 burgers in 4 hours. My eyes were like blinded because of the smoke, and people were going bazonkers over my burgers. I don't know if it was the green cream cheese that was whipped up. Get it?
All right.
Green, right?
Every so often I find green on my cream cheese in my fridge.
So we made a little green cream cheese to go on that burger. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
But they were going, what is in your sauce? It's a secret. But guess what? Since you're listening to the podcast today, I'm going to give it to you.
Do you need a drum roll for this?
You want a drum roll? All right.
All right. Right.
The secret sauce is mayonnaise. I like Hellman's, but there's a mayo in New Orleans. It escapes me right now, but that's a good one
Wait,
too.
you're using Hellman's in Savannah, Georgia. See, in the South, I was always taught that you use Duke's.
Well, Duke's is really kind of in New Orleans area, Louisiana area. And that was the name I was looking for.
Oh,
Duke's mayonnaise
Yeah.
in Louisiana. Beautiful mayonnaise.
Yeah.
Or Hellman's. I like Hellman's too, okay? A1 sauce. Here's the clincher. Pickle juice.
dill
Not Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, but pickle juice. A little bit of pickle juice, not Beetlejuice, and black pepper. Wow. Put that into a bowl, whip it up very, very nicely. And I'm sure everybody else has got their own concoction, their own special sauce. I know chefs going, telling me what this is and that is. You could use a little gochujang, you could use a little sriracha, but I like that. It's very simple, and it's not too spicy.
Yeah, and those are ingredients that most people have
in the refrigerator.
access to. And,
right?
and to go ahead and make sure we clear the air before we get hate mail, you were advocating for the steak sauce in a burger application, not on a steak.
In a burger.
So there you go. And in that, right, just so everybody's listening, we're talking about that on a burger, right? So don't worry, we're not desecrating any steaks up here.
We're not. Okay, let me. Yeah, please, I don't want any hate mail. All right.
Chef, that is about all the time that we have for this week's edition of Meat Speak. If this is your first time tuning in, please know that we are available across most major podcasting platforms, including iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, you name it. It's popping up in places I have no idea. All right. Until next week, we appreciate you tuning in here. If you do have any questions, concerns, if you want to make sure you clear the air with Chef Tony about the steak sauce reference, you can email us at podcast@certifiedangusbeef.com. Big thanks to meat scientist Diana Clark for taking time out of her busy schedule to join us today. Until next time, Chef, thank you.
Thank you.